Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. You got a Guys Network edition today. I got my boy Heath Taylor right behind me back here ripping grass with a lipless crankbait. We're going to cover something slightly different, another cold water grass technique, probably the most dependable technique I have year in, year out on Lake Fork. That's the old chatterbait. That thing right there is dependable, catches really big bass on Lake Fork every single winter. So y'all just ignore him unless he's got a big one on, and we're going to talk about how I fish a chatterbait. Well, you know, guys, chatterbait is something that, like I said, I depend on it every single winter time. You know, this time of year, it's something that you can throw throughout the vast majority of the year. It's a very versatile bait. You can throw it in a lot of different scenarios. But to me, right now, as we get towards the second half of January and we go all the way through February and even the first half of March is when the chatterbait really shines. That pre-spawn time period, it really just catches a bigger class of fish than just about anything else will. And it catches fish more consistently no matter what the weather does than just about anything I can think of, especially for East Texas and Lake Fork. Anywhere where there's grass, you know, chatterbait's going to be a big deal. It's something that I do a whole bunch. Me personally, when I'm fishing for myself, I throw it a lot. I have a lot of confidence in it. Like I said, catches big fish for me. So I spend a lot of time with it. So I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on the gear and the setup that you need to throw it best. So I figure we'll start right there. First things first, the rod. The rod's very important because this chatterbait, you want it contacting grass, as we'll talk about throughout this video today. I've used a lot of different rod sizes. I've used a lot of different lines. I've kind of got it dialed down to what I think is really the best and most efficient way to fish it, and that's with a 7-foot heavy rod. My rod of choice, because I do this so much, I got the top end limit offering that they have, the Elite Series rod. 7-foot heavy action, though, is the deal. I've used in a couple different brands a 7-foot heavy action rod, and that is just absolutely perfect. It gets that chatterbait free from that grass with so much ease with that short, stout rod, but yet at the same time, it's a small enough rod that you don't overpower the fish when you try to set the hook. So a 7-foot heavy action rod, very important. On my reel, hey, on my chatterbait rod, I go ahead and set it up with a 6-3-1. Now, this time of year, most of the time, we're just barely crawling it just fast enough to keep the blade vibrating. But in the summertime, a lot of times, we'll be burning it over really tall grass in the summer. So I do like a 6-3-1 to have me a little bit of variance in which direction I can go speed-wise. I've fooled around with braid and fluorocarbon, and if I was fishing a chatterbait in a lake that had no grass, I probably would stay with fluorocarbon. But because I primarily fish it around grass, I like to use 50-pound braid, guys. It allows me to rip that bait from that grass so easy in this wintertime situation. It allows me to draw those reaction bites. You know, you have to contact that grass, but you have to get free of that grass to get those reaction bites in the wintertime. As far as different baits and trailers that I use, you know, Live Magic Shad has been my primary chatterbait trailer for a long time. You know, this guy right behind me kind of turned me on to throwing that, which I've thrown some paddle tails on chatterbaits before, but his paddle tail, Smash Tail and Smash Tail Jr., has such a subtle kick to it that I feel like there is definitely a time and place for it. And that's in the extreme conditions. When the weather is extremely hot and I'm burning it over tall grass, I really like that Smash Tail because I can burn it fast and it just has a nice little kick. But in extremely cold conditions, which we're fishing today is about 40-degree water, I also like the Smash Tail, little paddle tail that Heath Taylor makes at Smash Tech, and that's because of the subtleness of the kick again. When I'm creeping it, that thing takes so little effort to have the little subtle kick that Smash Tail provides that I really feel like it's a better option. And he actually schooled me up and thumped my tail on it the last time we were in the boat before today when I had the Live Magic Shad and he had the Smash Tail. So not taking anything away from the Live Magic Shad, I've got 3 of those rigged up here on these other 3 baits. But when the weather gets this cold, I like to go to that smash tail. As far as colors go, you guys saw I got a white or a shad color right there. That's a white with an El Guapo smash tail on it. Trimmed just about a half, 3/4 of an inch off the head, just to make it a little compact profile deal on that particular bait there. But here's one right here, green pumpkin. Guys, when the water's real clear, I like green pumpkin, especially on a bright sunny day, clear water. I like green pumpkin a lot. Now, a lot of times in the winter we do get some dirty water. When that goes down, when the water gets real dirty, real cloudy day, I do like a black and blue in the cold time of year, but the thing on the black and blue is I don't trim anything off the head of my Live Magic shad. I leave the full Live Magic shad on there, and it creates a little bit bulkier profile, and that black and blue has a hard color image in the water. They can really see it real well. And the kicker to the black and blue one is I always use a gold blade on my black and blue chatterbaits. One more that, for a little while was kind of a Lake Fork secret, but it's kind of been long exposed for many years now, is the old sun perch color with the orange belly and the green back. This is Sungill Live Magic shad and on a green pumpkin chatterbait. That is kind of a deal when they start getting real close, as I get into March, and even sometimes carry this over into April a little bit. When those bass are on beds and they're defending their nest against bluegill, or when the bluegill are on beds and the bass are trying to take advantage of them, that color right there can be for real, guys. It can really catch them. All right, so that's the colors. As far as size goes, this time of year when we're fishing it real slow, talking specifically to winter, trying to fish it as slow as I can. I want a 3/8 ounce. I want that thing to just feather down into that grass as light as possible. I want to be able to creep it as slow as I can and not get it too bogged down in that grass. You start getting into the 1/2 ounce and bigger models, and that bait will get too far down in that grass and you can't get it free as easy. So for that reason, I pretty much stick with only the 3/8 ounce version this time of year, unless it's just super windy. And honestly, when it's super windy, I try to get in protected areas and still throw that 3/8 ounce because I really like that slow presentation. All right, let's talk areas for a minute. Today we're not on Lake Fork. We're on another East Texas lake, but specifically talking about Lake Fork, and you can translate this to all water bodies. These fish, the ones that are going to spawn early, are going to spawn in the back of the shallowest, flattest, massive, skinny water areas. So what you want to find is big, massive areas with super skinny water. I'm talking about 1 foot of depth on these flats with just some little subtle drains in it. And then the other thing too is grass and stumps. I like really big stumps and I like good, healthy grass. If I can find a massive shallow area with some grass and some wood, hey, that's all the ingredients I need to have a really good chatterbait bite in the cold water. They will get in some really skinny water and use it even in the coldest of conditions. And the reason why is because as soon as they get a little warm weather, like today, the water temps are around 40 degrees, which is about as cold as I've ever seen it in this area, in this part of Texas. But, it's 40 degrees today, water temp wise. It's been below freezing air temperatures here for several days, several nights in a row. But here in the next few days, it's going to be 70 degrees. So the reason those fish use that shallow water is because when we get those 70-degree days, that skinny water is going to warm faster than anything else. So even when it's not the warmest, they may not be all the way in the back today, but a couple days when it gets 70, they're going to go to the back of those skinny water pockets, and they're going to hang around that area no matter what. So look for those warming trends, capitalize on those warming trends. That's when you can have your best days on this pattern. But a chatterbait will still catch them on the outside edges of those areas. No matter how cold the water gets, you can usually just about always grind out a couple bites on a chatterbait. And then the other thing in your areas, and this is for those colder trending days like we have right now today, what you want to do is find the little subtle drains, secondary kind of backwater washouts, depressions, any type of subtle elevation change. It doesn't have to be a big elevation change. It can be a foot. A difference in the water depth can make a huge difference because those fish need something like that for these type of days when it's super cold water temps. We've had several cold days. They have to have something to be able to pull back into to get just a little bit more depth of water to get them right off the surface when that surface starts getting ice on it. Believe it or not, like this area that's right behind me right here probably had ice all over it a few days ago. So when it gets that extremely cold, they need that dish, they need that creek channel, something to suck back into in that flat. So big flats, grass and trees, and then a little bit of a drain or a ditch of some kind running through there. And that's the areas you want to focus. All right, guys, so the retrieve on your chatterbaits. Long cast are a big deal. Now once I engage my reel and I start rolling, I just want to reel fast enough to where I just start feeling that blade vibrate, and then I want to just barely keep that blade vibrating. Probably the most important part about this is my rod positioning. I want to keep that rod somewhere between 9 and 10 or 2 and 3 o'clock on your, if I was looking at a clock dial here. The reason that is, I've got a lot more leverage when it hits that grass to rip. If I've got that rod way up here, I have no strength, I have no room to pull that bait out of that grass when it gets caught up in it. If I hold it down, same thing, I don't have near the leverage to rip. If I have that rod pointing kind of straight out at a 9 or 10 o'clock position, you know, I've got a lot more leverage to rip this way, I can rip this way, I can do it from any angle I want to. And then the other thing is that ties into your hook sets as well. You know, guys, on a chatterbait, in the cold water especially, they tend to swim up from behind it and just kind of suck it in and load up on it. It's not, you don't feel a thump a lot of times. You'll just feel a little bit of weight difference where that fish just starts to load up on it. That's one of the reasons this right here is so important, because when I have my rod out, there's no shock absorption in that rod. So as soon as that fish starts to load up, I'm going to immediately feel the tension on that line because there is no bow in my rod. And on top of that, I'm going to have a tight line so that when I start to pull, I'm immediately applying hook pressure. Because this hook set on the chatterbait, guy, if you go to blasting on it, if you try to crack it like a swim jig or crack it like any kind of a jig or Texas rig type of bite, with that blade on the front, that apparatus, you're going to lose a lot of fish. You're going to barely skin hook them, or you're going to blow it completely out of their mouth on the hook set. So really what you want to kind of do is, as your rod's at that 9 to 10 o'clock position, that rod starts to load up on you, sweep that rod and then burn that reel handle real hard. Dig that hook in all the way with this reel handle and really load your rod up. And that's why it's important to have it at that angle so you can immediately apply the pressure and start digging it in. That's the way you want to do that. And then once you got it dug into them good, you know, usually with a chatterbait, once you get them hooked and you got them hooked good, you've got them. It's rock solid. And of course, we've got the 50-pound braid. We've got a 7-foot heavy action rod, so you can really handle some pretty good sized fish pretty well with this setup if you do it correctly. And one more tip, guys, when you're ripping out of grass, you know, any given day they could want it a little bit differently. Some days they want you to really, they want that thing to explode out of that grass. Some days they just want you to add a little reel pressure and just ease it out of that grass, kind of let it fall out of it. So I like to try and start with easing it out of there as easy as possible, and then as the day goes on, I'll try different options, try to rip it out of there a little bit harder and harder as the day goes on until I get a couple bites and see what they're reacting to the best. Now, as far as the depth of grass, you know, you may be wondering, well, if I'm holding my rod straight, how do I get that chatterbait down? Hey, that's all controlled right here. You can pause this reel handle, you can slow way down and allow that chatterbait. Like I said, in the wintertime, we're just barely keeping that blade shaking. So that chatterbait's gonna dive down as you're reeling it in that slow. And I'm literally turning it this slow most of the time, barely keeping my blade vibrating. And then as soon as I start feeling that grass, I may speed it up a little bit just to get it out of that grass. And then I'll let it go back down and hit it again. I constantly want to be feeling for that grass, trying to hit that grass, and then getting out of it as quick as possible. So that's basically it, man. That's kind of how I retrieve it. It's a pretty simple bait. There's some little subtle things you can do different. The main thing is, and you'll see me a lot of times on camera, I'll have my rod down here, have my rod up. I'm being lazy. I'm not focused. If I'm really paying attention in the zone, my rod will be straight out. I'll be reacting to every little bit of pressure the grass puts on that bait, and I'll be reacting as soon as the fish puts pressure on it as well. And when you do it like that, you catch just about every one of them that bites. Well, there you go, guys. That's how I work a chatterbait. That's the full deal. That's all the details I can give you. I don't know what else to tell you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. Let me know what you thought of this video. I hope it helps you catch some really big bass this pre-spawn period, because a chatterbait is a wonderful way to do it. Look at there, huh? Dude, no way. That was, oh my God. Hold on, don't forget about that. Don't forget about that. Dude. Oh, John B, what you think about that?
That was sweet, man. That was like
pretty
the
good.
Thing on earth.
That white chatterbait's pretty good. fish. Oh, big giant. Oh, I missed it. There he is. Woo! Hey, we appreciate watching New Lake Fork Guys. Always appreciate you watching the Guys Network. Like the video, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. If you want to see more, be sure and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time, right here, your Lake Fork Guys.